Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm sure you were on last week's show because the comments have been incredible. You are the best, even though I have a podcast host with me today and people that play in media with me, but you are my best podcast audience. How about I say that? You are my best media friends and you rock. And we are going to blow this show up today because what happens when you get a bunch of creatives together? What happens is you get so many ideas that you plan your schedule for the next 3 years. I mean, get a room of creatives in a field. You start making TV shows. You start collaborating. I don't know, you start doing art shows all over the world because anything is possible when you talk to somebody that's creative, because creative people find creative ways, right? And then you put in that entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurship. And if you don't know what an entrepreneur is, it's an entrepreneur that can't say no. Mostly they can't say no to themselves. We get these ideas going. Seriously, you can imagine what it's like. That's why it's super cool when you go to like art shows or you go to the theater or you're supporting someone that's shooting a movie or whatever. And there's the people hanging out, and then there's this hover of enthusiasm. It's almost like ether, right? And there's this whole creative bubble that's going around. So we're going to have a blast on this show today. So let me introduce to you. And so listen, audience, I know some of you are listening and some of you are watching, so I'm just going to kind of introduce to who you're going to be listening to today, and I'm going to get them just kind of do their hand up so that if someone is watching, they know they can put the voice to the hand. And for those of you that are listening, just listen, watch the show later. We got you. We're going to talk creative today. So Miss Carroll, can you just give us a wave today? Just let us know who you are. Carroll Patrizi, all the way from Texas. And then we have Rony. Now, Rony, this is interesting. I've never pronounced your last name, and let's hope I do it correctly. Is it Rony Armas? All right. So just give a little wave, thumbs up. That's you. Awesome. And then you have seen both Carroll and Ocean before in the show. So Ocean, just give us a wave. Awesome. That's great. We know who we're talking to. Could you imagine if there was 20 or 30 of us on here? We'd be like, we'd be eating lunch at the same time. There'd be so many cool things going on. But let's get into it, because this is called Mission Accepted. And you know that what we talk about is a little James Bondish. It's like, it's the risk and the danger and the joy and the surprise and the cool things that happen by taking this venture. Because this venture, sometimes the hardest thing is deciding to be an entrepreneur until you're actually an entrepreneur and you realize that maybe some of the hardest things is staying an entrepreneur. You accept the mission, but then you got to stay on that mission. And where does that mission go? So, Carroll, let me start with you a little bit. I'm just going to kind of throw a question. Like, we all have these lives, and at one point you decide that you're going to do something that falls in this creative field. What was that like for you? What was that like for you? And tell us what you do. Tell us what you do, who you are, what you do. I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are. It's the Carroll and Deb show a lot of times.
We have a ball. And I have to say, Deb has been such an incredible positive influence and mentor along this media journey. When I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be in entertainment and media, and then was told, no, that's not what you're going to do. So I went along this other path. The good news is you're constantly preparing for what you don't know you're preparing for, and went along. And I'm older than all the guests here, inclusive of our fabulous host. I'm on the backside no matter how I look at it. And when I had the opportunity to not do all my entrepreneur other things, real estate and banking, etc., I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to sit around and wonder. I'm going to get into the media and the entertainment. So I said, let's do it. Started a production, one of 11 productions. It was going to be about my family because I'm number 6 of 11. We have writers and songwriters and anything you've done, good or bad, you find that within our 11. And I said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to tell these stories, because with all my heart, I believe we learn through people's stories. And then the journey led me to one thing after another. And now it's exploding. And the entire mission has been to share with others that you're a unique child of God and you matter and your story matters. And I'm sharing that every way I can. I get to meet people from all over the world and work with Deb. A lot of things coming up as well. And I'll tell you, it's thrilling. It's thrilling. I love it. I knew when I was 8 this was what I was supposed to be doing. Took me a little bit. So
Well,
there you
yeah, sometimes the journey, like you said, sometimes the journey is the preparation. And we all know that frustration, right? We all know the frustration. So, Ronnie, what about for yourself? When was it that you came over to this side? I won't say the dark side because it's really colorful over here. It's really
yeah.
colorful. When did you come to the colorful
It
side?
that's actually a really great question because I'll tell you the truth. I actually started out as a science nerd, not an art nerd. I wanted to. I had a great admiration and love for biology, so it was like marine bio, neurobio, psychology. Anything in those fields for me is what I was really attracted to ever since I was a kid. But it was one day I was just taking a photography class at community college, and I fell in love with the darkroom. I started with film, right? And I fell in love with the darkroom, and it was such a I would spend like 10, 12 hours in the darkroom, just the magic of seeing a print come to life, right? This is before digital, before the instant gratification. You had to go through a process, and you had to, have your prints go through chemicals, and you had to wait, and you had to see if you were able to capture that moment or not. And to me, that was very cathartic. It was very zen. And that was kind of the inception for me. And then I'll tell you, one day somebody came into the college saying, "Hey, I'd like to hire a photographer." And then when I figured out that people are willing to pay for photos, that was it. That was it. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So currently I am a photographer, graphic designer, cinematographer, filmmaker, everything to do in media. Um, like Carol said, really just being a storyteller, right? That's really what it's come down for me, is finally realizing at this point in my life that I'm a storyteller. I didn't realize that until recently. I thought I liked creating images and collaborating with people. But, within the last couple of years, it kind of finally hit. Oh, wait, I guess I tell stories. And so now that's kind of given me a brand new direction, right, as a creative to focus in on all the skills that I have and how now do I bring them all together and collaborate with other amazing folks to bring stories to life. And especially nowadays, we need that more than ever, right? We need to be able to like grab people's attention and hold it, and kind of, reprogram ourselves to go beyond the instant gratification and invest in the story. And by doing that, we're investing in ourselves.
Mm.
Wow, thank you. That's so interesting. Isn't it so interesting? And I took photography in school, and I remember taking the little plastic tongs and going from one wash
Hmm.
to another wash to another
Hmm.
wash. I
Hmm.
also remember when you used to take pictures on a camera and you didn't take 45 pictures because you had a camera roll. You only had so many pictures and you had to hope. You went and picked up your pictures and you looked, you're like, that one didn't work. You know what I mean? That one didn't
Yep.
work. And I think there is something to be said about that whole instant. And, people will say to me, they're like, oh, I need to make now, sometimes if you're doing a short on YouTube or something and it's got to be within a certain time, but I have people say to me, I've got to keep all my content really short. I've got to keep it. I said, no, we've been wiring our brains that way. But I said, when's the last time you went in to see a movie and you got up after 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 90 seconds? You stayed the whole hour, an hour and a half or two. So if you're talking, you're giving value, you're engaging people, you're teaching people, they're going to hang. They're going to
Yeah.
hang out. How many people leave in a conference are like, gotta go? So I think if we just can re-talk that have that conversation. But that's awesome. And Ocean, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and what was it? What was the point? Was there a point? Did you go from something else into creative, or did you just start in this field?
I always wanted to have my own clothing line and my own business since I was a child. I always wanted to have that following, especially because I was very interested in sneakers in the streetwear world, and I would watch, and even myself would even line up for a drop or a ticket to get the shoes that you wanted to get. And but I was like, wow, like imagine having my own line and people do that about my clothes and they love it so much that they'll wait in a line. So ever since I was a kid, I had like that desire to have my own line and my passion for art, and so I just mixed the two together. So I kind of said like, I'm a fashion designer, mixing my passion with art into one. So that's I always wanted to have that passion strive for it. So now that we're doing it, and we just came back from trade shows and talking to a whole bunch of people and seeing how they react to it, if they like it, maybe they don't, maybe it's not their thing, but they still kind of like take a look. It's just surreal, and so now we're truly following my path, and I'm very happy about that now.
Right on. Did you ever work for anyone or have another job before you went into your own company?
Yeah, I mean, I worked at gyms. So that was really what I did was I worked at, Golds, and I worked at all those kind of front desk sales jobs. So now that I get to sell my own products and my own creations, is very, very surreal.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. Carol, I'm going to go to you. Thanks so much, Ocean. I'm going to go to you. And so, you're doing life and all of a sudden, the 8-year-old starts screaming like, yo, what about me? What was the risk? Like, I mean, I think there's risk in a lot of things that we do, whether it's in business or out of business, but was there something that felt risky? That for some people it's financial, for some people it's people in their life that are like, what are you doing? Like support for it. Could it be like, I'm taking something away from a business that's already successful? Like what's going to happen to that business? Like where did your risk come into it? What made you?
So I think that a risk comes up in a lot of those areas. Those are great examples. I'll just speak to the one that was the largest for me.
Yeah.
And that was I was at a point that if I pursued anything, much less anything new, because you dive into this area, any type of creative area, you're consumed with it. And I now, at this point, I have two incredible little grandbaby girls. And when I started, I guess they were, 3 and 5, and now they're a little bit older. But the risk I was taking was that this beautiful group of family that I cherish so much is thinking, what you now, you're making a choice instead of being completely on top of this time that we all have.
Mm,
You are making a choice to continue. You know, I think as an entrepreneur and especially as a creative, it's not really a choice. It's constantly in you. I
mhm.
mean, it's just something dying to get out. And they have been instead, I took that risk knowing that I would be better with and for them and as a walk the talk kind of person if I went forward with it. And, to me, that's the greatest risk of all is that those around you that you cherish and you're so grateful for. And it turns out after a while of doing it, now they love it. The kids now, I interview the little girls, you
Yeah.
know, I don't put them up, but they're, and they're very creative. So thank you, Father. It's all working out. So the risk was worth it, but it was scary.
I appreciate that transparency because it's real.
It's real.
It's real. Like you go into something that's enveloping, right? You go into something that's enveloping. You didn't go and grab another job that had hours and structure and that could be worked around. So when you go into that, even as an entrepreneur, I had two children that were 10 years apart. And when I first started, there was a particular person in my family that thought they'd share with my daughter, like, I gave up my career when I had my children. And I'm like, well, you're not sleeping over at her house anymore. Like literally I called her, I'm like, she's not coming back. But and then it's hard to work within yourself on it because the bottom line is it's in us too, right? We're like, I know I'm not spending time there, I'm spending time here. And what does me spending time here? What I had to, like you go, but what value does that bring? Like what value does that bring that grandchild, that child, that what have you to see and watch? And hopefully you embed a different set of values, right? So I mean my daughter was like, well, you're gonna be the yaya that takes her shopping in New York. And I'm like, yeah, I am, you know. So but it takes a while for me, it did anyway. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's a real thing. That's a real thing. So,
And if I can throw in one comment about it, just recently, and I so appreciated this. One of my three kiddos, they're all grown and have these beautiful careers, thank God. And she said, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate that you chose to continue to learn and grow and do something, because so many of my dear friends, their mothers are not, they're not active enough.
mhm.
And they're looking for things to fill time. I think maybe I'm the other extreme. However, I did appreciate that they shared that they were cool with it.
Yeah, right on. Right on. Thank you so much. And Rony, what about for you? Risk.
I'll tell you, I started in my early 20s, down this path I started as a photographer. And then, like I mentioned earlier, when somebody said, "Oh my gosh, we'll pay you," it blew my mind. I can make money doing this. But the risk really was, can I make a living at this? Is this something that is sustainable? Does this actually make sense? And when you're in your, 20s, there's a whole lot of bravado. There's a whole lot of, feeling like you're immortal. Nothing can hurt you. You'll figure it out. Like, and thank God I had that, because that did actually help me. I had my first business at 25, and we worked, with local chambers of commerce. We worked with the city of LA. We did some pretty good stuff, which was kind of mind blowing. Except again, it was my naivete that got us through that, because I didn't know we weren't supposed to be able to do that, right? Not having an experience, not knowing what a contract was, not knowing about any of this stuff. But the risk was that, right? Because um, almost majority of my life, I always work for myself, but it's always that, but can I continue doing this? Can I continue to sustain myself? Can I ever buy a home doing this? Can I ever have a family doing this? And it's gotten scary many times. I'm first generation here. My family's from El Salvador. And I want to actually give props to my little country that does have good stuff going on too. And, but first generation here with all the stuff you go through, like there was a lot of imposter syndrome too. A lot of imposter syndrome. So, okay, maybe I can do this, but everything says I can. Maybe like so much doubt that just overwhelms your mind on the day-to-day basis. But then, like Carroll said, there's also this thing in you that just has to come out. This vision, this idea, this ambition. It's like it's its own little being inside of you that just it needs to breathe, right? And so it's a constant battle that I'll be honest continues to this day. Um, I've gotten to do and work on some pretty amazing things over my creative career, and I still wake up thinking sometimes, gosh, but can I continue doing this? There's so many good people out there, and technology being what it is, it's kind of like a little scary now. Like, is anyone going to need me anymore because of what technology can do now? So there's a lot of questions there, and I think the risk never goes away per se. We're always, anytime, and this is part of just being an artist. An artist has to be vulnerable for the work to be good. So you risk every single day. You risk every single time you create something, you are giving part of yourself, a part of your soul, a part of your story. And so the risk is always there. I think it's inherent to a creative. I think the what we need to do is just be brave, right? Find that courage, suck it up and do it. And then there's always that beautiful satisfaction when you see the piece of art, whatever it may be, and then the reaction from the people, right? That it actually connected.
Absolutely. That's such a big piece of it, isn't it? The process and what goes on in the mind of an entrepreneur, never mind a creative entrepreneur, where because it is creativity, because it's so up to you to access that and then stay in that. You hear people having writer's blocks or artist blocks, and then that starts to get a little more panicky for people in that moment. Is it going to happen? Is it going to be received? I just poured 6 months into this. Is this film going to make it? Is it going to have that? There's so many elements that are the unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an unknown element in the world of entrepreneurship anyways, but if you have a coach and you have a master class, you've worked on your master class, now you've got to market that master class and you'll capture what you capture. But with art, sometimes when you produce it, you can't be guaranteed people's responses because they vary. Some people like, I need to hang that in my hallway. Some people like, please, no one buy me that for Christmas. Like, you just don't know, right? And it's part of the exploratory experience. So that's actually well said. Ocean, what about for you? I mean, share with us, like, what does it feel like to be an artist? What was risky for you about going into your business? Maybe it was going into something that was fairly unknown. This is your first company. What for you felt risky?
I feel like what Ronnie said was pretty like that's what I was kind of thinking as well, where it was like, how are we gonna continue with this? Because I've always wanted to do this, and this is my true passion. And how can we continue and grow? And I feel like Ronnie said what I was really thinking in my head. But to be an artist is pretty surreal. Like, you do get that where you do learn like, oh, people love it or people don't love it, and then you get to kind of experience that and still make your own thing out of that. And sometimes people get it, sometimes they don't. But you still talk to them. They still kind of appreciate what you're trying to do and how you're showing up. But yeah, I think that's pretty true. Like, to continue with it and how we're gonna get enough money to produce more, and yeah, and doing like custom work, all those things kind of go into one, and like, yeah, it's pretty like that.
Pretty like that. I mean, I think you talked about something really real and transparent, like Carroll did, the money. The money. When you are creating and you spend time creating in this field, particularly, there's a lot of cart before the horse. You know what I mean? Particularly if you're creating something new, like a fashion line, like a movie, like a show, right? Like, I think it's a great idea. Is it a great idea? Am I on the mark or am I off 3%? Because we know 3% could be, everything. And I need to sell this, produce this to get money so I can keep producing and creating. And it's cyclical, right? I mean, Ocean, I saw you at a trade show this weekend. Pretty sure we were hanging out, and I saw you. You had just produced 11 new stickers for this TV show that you're doing, right? For the tattoo show, and you had it all out. And it was interesting what you were saying to people, because people were engaged, and then before they left, you actually had them voting on their top 3 pieces of the stickers that they liked. And it was interesting for you. I've seen you do that before at a different show, like you did at the Japan show, different crowd. I saw you do it at this show, which was more of an artisan kind of crowd. And it was really interesting for me to observe you taking notes, and then, really what pictures were riding high, which then I know you're taking that decision, and those are the first pieces that you'll take to market. So it's very interesting. Sometimes you can't do that, right? And it's expensive to do that. You go to a show for market research, right? You spend thousands of dollars for market research. But those are the things that people don't know, right? They don't know. So like you said, Ronnie, when someone sees something that you've produced and you're like, oh my gosh, that was the best podcast I've been on. Oh my gosh, I love the shirt I'm wearing. Oh my gosh, the pictures are gorgeous. There's more than just, hey, thanks. It's like a soul confirmation that you're on the right path. So let's flip this. So there's risk, there's reward, there's whole thing. So let's talk about the reward. Let's talk about what is one of the coolest things that you've either experienced as a personal development piece, or I don't know, someone walked up to you that was cool. Like, Carroll, share with me a cool moment from being in this world of creative and media that you were like, man, that was awesome. You just shared one kind of when your daughter came out to you, but something cool that happened that you didn't expect.
I did not expect to have people that have been in this industry that have been very successful, and the filmmakers, actors, music makers, like Ronnie here. I mean, it's, Ocean, you're developing your own stuff. When people like that, you hear one validating word, I'm covered in chills, because, it's amazing. To everybody's point, to Ronnie and Ocean, we're so vulnerable. To choose this is to say, okay, I'm going to put myself out there. And it was this doesn't have anything about anybody famous saying anything, or my family, who I care about more than anything, saying something validating. I realized it was eye-opening, very cool for me to realize that through the vulnerability piece, my hesitation to put some work out there, I preach about accountable for what we're doing, right? I realized I was judging the people that were going to see it, how they were going to look at me. I was the one being judgy. And I think it was very cool and eye-opening and freeing for me to say, I'm just going to go ahead and trust these people. You know, I'm
Mhm.
not going to prejudge what they're going to feel like, which also helped me, oh my God, with the imposter syndrome. You know, just I'm out here and I'm sharing a piece of me, and hopefully it connects, and hopefully it connects other. And most importantly, the coolest thing of all is when somebody else decides to share their creativity, because I was, like Rony said, I was brave enough. I was just brave and I just did it. And like you, Deb, you preach, stand up, show up, and speak up. I mean, it's like, let's do this. So that's the coolest part for me, that it might inspire someone else to throw that piece of themselves out there.
Right on. Thank you so much. I mean, touche, touche. Ronnie, what about you? What's a cool experience for you?
I'm gonna try to say this real quick because three things come up and they're very unique in how they hit me. So I work behind the camera in films as well, right? And so I've been doing this for over 20 years. Um, and a few years ago, I worked on a documentary on human trafficking,
Mm.
and very heavy, very intense. And but it got great reception, great audiences throughout the world. And the film was shortlisted for an Oscar nomination. That to me was huge. Like, you do things, you work on stuff, and you show up, and you have no idea. You just show up and try to do your best. And there were a bunch of other camera folks on this, right? It was a huge team. I was just one of the camera people on there. But to be part of a team that did something that goes back to what we're kind of talking about, got that kind of acknowledgement. Didn't win, that's fine. Just to be shortlisted as an Oscar nominee, though, was mind blowing. It was mind blowing. Um, Recently, I did some graphic design work for Sheila E., and she just won a Grammy for a single, and I did the art for that single. And so I was watching the Grammys, and it was mind blowing to see my art on the stage as she's getting her Grammy award. And again, another little tidbit of like, whoa, wow, what really did that just happen? And I taking a million screenshots on my computer, like, oh my God, to kind of verify it later, like, no way, no way. And then I also do fine art. And a couple years ago, I had an art show, an art series. It's called Our Stories Are Ancient. And these are portraits that I take of people with symbols drawn on glass that then they hold. No Photoshop. This is all traditional photography. They hold the glass in front of them, and the symbol represents their particular ancestry or indigeneity. And the point of the story is to get us to kind of remember where we come from. And so I had an art show at the college where I currently work at, and this student came up to me at the end of the show, just completely in tears, gave me a big old hug, and she was like, you know what, thank you. Like, I didn't even realize that I should be asking that question. Where do I come from? And
Mm.
that to me was hit me so powerful. It was so poignant, right? To realize that an image, right, can give birth to that kind of question, such a powerful question to say, who am I and where do I come from? And so, like, those three stick out of my mind, and those are three things that I do try to pull to whenever I'm having doubt. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I woke up this morning with a little creative doubt. I mean, it happens, right? And I was like, I have so much to do, and I have no idea how I'm gonna do it. Um, but then you recall, and then you get to be in beautiful spaces like this. Thank you, Deb, for facilitating this, because listening to you all and whatnot right now, I'm like, yeah, the pain is part of the struggle. We're supposed to suffer a little bit, otherwise the art doesn't have that depth, right? And so there you go. Thank
There it
you.
is. There it is. No, that's beautiful. Look, I think doubt's part of the deal when you step out of when you step into a venture that you may not have done before. And, or like I said, in the world of entrepreneurship, when people go, oh, it's a journey. I mean, if you describe the journey, it's full of everything. You get up, you put your 2 feet on the ground. We know we're going to get up. We know we're going to do our day. We know I bring our best. I mean, I'm listening to YouTubes in the morning. I've got, music playing while I'm in the shower. Like we source our substance for that day. Look, I was in the shower this morning going, I'm launching a TV channel in less than 12 hours. What was I thinking? Right? I'm like, where? And it started going. And I just said to someone before the show, I'm being completely transparent. I'm like, I shouldn't have been alone today. I should have known to have someone here to go, it's okay. It's okay. Like, the website's not done. It's okay. It's okay. You know what I mean? But it's part of it. And, there's some dialogue in there, that's going like, so who do you think you are? I don't know where that comes from because, we've surpassed that many times and I'm not 20, I've proven myself to be like, and there's days where I earned this and I can show it, you know what I mean? But I think that, I think it is part of the creative process. And I think it's like when Barbara Streisand, she talked about how she sung and why she's so stage, she has so much stage fright is that she literally was in Central Park and she was singing and she forgot all the words. And to this day, it's very hard for her to get over it. You'll very rarely see her in concert. I think she sang a song at a campaign once, a presidential campaign, and they paid her $3 million because she literally, like, that's how much pain it is for her because she just couldn't untrauma that, right? And you're thinking one of the most gorgeous, beautiful singers in the world, Yeah, very interesting. Okay, Ocean, for you, what's just some of the coolest things that's happened for you? Like, what puts a smile on your face when you're doing your thing, or what feels cool?
Yeah, I think this year definitely had a lot of this beginning and then last year, I think it was a big change for us, especially because meeting like people like Big Percy, who's like Snoop's and Nipsey Hussle's manager, like that was cool, and him like wearing the hats and but even like when we're back home, like especially at the trade show where you see people who are like, oh, this is awesome, and they generally get like excited about like putting it on or like even looking at a sticker, or they just generally like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, like I need to like have it. I think that's so like such a big impact, and just seeing the people's like smiling and like thinking like just having joy in their face while just like looking through and oh my god, this is so cool, this like I definitely need this like in my life, this is so cool. And then like even seeing people close to you get inspired by what you're doing, and even like I know somebody who now has like a clothing line, and I don't want to take credit, but but I feel like a little bit, I don't know, a little bit of motivation, like kind of like you could do it, like kind of thing. But stuff like that is just like puts a smile on your face, and even helping like your friends do what they want. I have a friend who wanted to do this kind of like wellness club, not like gym, but like for like recovery. And every time I see him, I'm like, okay, so did you get the marketing plan down? Did you write the business plan yet? Oh, soon. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give you like 2 days. Like it's just like a little bit like motivation. I really love that. Like, and then now knowing that he's already done it, and now he's been in the works of it for like a year and trying to get a place. Like I think that's such a, I don't know, inspiration for me to keep going, and then seeing where you can go with your life.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, now, when you start barking about it, and these guys can tell you, when you start telling people what to do, then you know that you got to stay in the game, right? Because you're like, now there's people watching me, and now I'm telling them what to do because now you got to stay ahead of that. That's awesome.
Now he's like, it's not like barking. It's like a little push. He's a good friend of mine, so it's just like, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I could go all day. I have to almost say, I think am I allowed to say this is one of my favorite shows? Probably because I'm with my peeps. I'm always with my peeps, but this is super fun. Let's wrap this up. So I'm going to go to you, and I'll ask you one last question after this, but there's a lot of people out there that are entrepreneurs that are relating to what you're saying. Absolutely. This is such a relatable conversation. But we always like to be able to take advice, right? People call it success tips. It's kind of boring. It's like, I always say things like that are like, burgundy bridesmaid dresses in the 80s. They should never come back. But the 10 top tips. So sorry if that's what you use for your book title. Anyway, there you go. I just put myself out there. Someone hates me. But look, we all try to do this easier. We try to share things that make it better. We motivate people and inspire people. What was something that you did in your business as a creative that, I don't know, made money quicker, saved you some time? It could be not caring what people think. I mean, that could be a success hack right there. I'll kind of go around the room as I do, if you can please, because we have a lot of listeners and watchers, and there's going to be some cool show notes about you. But if you can just mention like your website or something where people can find out where you are, that'd be great. So Carroll, let's start with you. Something that you do, I call it top performance, something that just gets you there.
Use the real strength. Ask for the help. Reach out. Ask. Save yourself a bunch of trouble and ask. People that have done it, people that have just gotten started, they want to share. They do want to share. Don't judge another person judging you for you reaching out, because what they'll really say is, you know what? This person was brave enough to ask. I'm going to give them some good advice. That's what I'm going to say. Oh, where to get me?
Yep.
CarrollPatrizi.com, and move into the world of the life.
Moving into the world of life.
You are welcome. You matter. Your story matters. Come on over.
Right on. Right on. And Rony?
So I'll tell you, kind of go back to when I first started. I said first business at 25. I was 25, but I looked 12. And so I remember the first time I went into a Chamber of Commerce business networking event, and I didn't know how to speak. I was like, how do I do this? And I was able to go in there and go toe to toe and give that firm handshake and look people in the eye, and kind of making it up though, and walk out with business. And so my advice is show up, like be everywhere, be everywhere. No business is going to find you at home. No business is going to find you sitting in your office. Yeah, and this is a lesson I've just recently learned, and I've been doing this over 20 years. I've got a business name, and I'll throw that out there right now. It's RAstudioanddesign.com, and it's the same for Instagram, RA Studio and Design. But people don't care about my business name. People want to do business with me. And that was a huge lesson. I was so busy, caught up, very much for what I've done for other businesses, create their logos, create their marketing assets, make sure that their taglines, create all the stuff that makes them look good. And I was trying to do that for myself. And then one day it just hit me. It was like, no one cares what my business name is. They want to do business with me. They want to work with me because of what I can produce for them, because of the relationship that we create together, because of the collaboration that we're able to fire up together. So my advice is get out there. And that's a risk, right? Because a lot of us, I don't know about y'all, but I'm an introvert. I am 100% an introvert, and it takes a lot for me to get out there. It is effort. But you have to get out there, shake the hands. I prefer business cards. Everyone's trying to do digital thing, but I love business cards because it's tangible. You use all your senses, right? So have that tool with you when you go out into the world and mix it up with people. Have a good firm handshake, look people in the eye, and tell the truth. Be vulnerable. So take the risk in two ways. Get out there and be vulnerable, and people will want to work with you.
Right on. Thank you so much. And Ocean, what would your advice be to someone to just make this easier?
To make it easier, it's never really an easy journey. So it's always ups and downs. There's always obstacles. But to make it easier, just to kind of do something that you love. Like, if it's getting too hard sometimes, just think, well, for me, I just kind of usually make like a different like art piece or a different design. That's what my suggestion is. Just do something kind of fun, something that could help your business. Maybe just have a call with somebody. Maybe just go out, like when you're walking around, just, hey, this is my like Ronnie said, like business card. I always have my business card on me. But yeah, to make it easier, just kind of have fun with it. Kind of, if it's getting too much, just take a break, think what you've come so far and where you started, and kind of reflect by that.
No, that's really good advice. I think that many times, particularly as entrepreneurs, we look forward a lot. We're looking forward a lot. We don't really stop. And people will say to us, stop and recognize, like, oh my gosh, Ronnie, you just like you were taking pictures of your artwork at the Grammys. And it's like, how much did we take that in? How much do we enjoy that? Or how much do we remember that? Like you said, reflect back when you're having those times that are unsure or unstable, or that piece didn't sell as fast, or the guest wasn't able to make it that you were banking on, or whatever, right? And to be able to reflect back to where you started, where you were last week, right? Many times we take things, I thought about that today. I was like, oh, I started off as a Denny's waitress and here I am launching a TV channel. That's kind of interesting. But it made me feel better today. I was like, oh yeah, I have come so far. I mean, I had to go back to when I was 16, but sometimes if you just go back to next week or last week or the week before, like, look how much you've done, and then recognize that a lot of that's process. And those things that we do when it's hard. For me, I stop, I put on a song, I go on the balcony, I take 2 minutes, I come back and I shift. What is it that makes us shift, right? So what a great conversation that we had today. There was more than what people would call gold nuggets. I think these were absolutely life lessons, and I think that this show was all about giving permission. I mean, I really feel like, I think if there's a title, that this should be called Giving Permission. Oh, let's all go do a book together and write a book called Giving Permission. All right, let's do it. I'll get it to number one. Ocean does the pictures. We can come on your show, and then Ronnie's going to do the whole thing and all the photography. There you go. That's what happens when you're a room full of people that are inspired, right? Inspired. I think it's interesting because I think the in is on the inside, right? It's like we're so inspired. Anyways, just wrapping up. I absolutely love this. This is going to be such a quick question, like such a quick question. You don't have a lot of time to decide. We all know how much I love music. I want to ask that question. You're on your way to a desert island. Desert island, you and you. One suitcase, you got room for one album to stick in that suitcase that you couldn't imagine not listening to for the rest of your days. What's that album going to be? You can give me a singer's name. You don't have to remember the album if you don't want, because if I do, everyone gives me greatest hits. But what's one album? Ocean, I'm going to start with you. What's one album that you just absolutely wouldn't want to live without?
Mine always keeps changing every time I feel like on this show, but most of the time I gotta stick with, it's either this one or Michael Jackson. But All Eyes on Me by Tupac, I listen to that every single day.
All right. And Carroll?
You know what? I've just been singing this lately. And to your point, Ocean, I change every time I'm on this fabulous show. And my answer is going to be, I've been singing a lot of Our House, which is Crosby, Stills, Nash. Yeah.
All right. Crosby, Stills, Nash. Gotta love it. And Ronnie, wrap it up.
This name just keeps popping up in my head over and over again. Anything Pink Floyd.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, look, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to talk to the audience a little bit here. Thank you for, again, hanging out with us during an amazing show. Look, we've just been able to announce this. DebDrummond.com. If you want to be sitting where these incredible people are, go there. But now you are going to see, by the time you watch this, the TV show, the Women's Channel, which is for women and those that support women. So I'm expecting that to be everybody, right? So we have a gorgeous women's channel. If you want to be seen here, if you want to be seen on the summits, if you want to come onto the show, if you want to do a 3-part miniseries, if you want to do whatever you want to do. For us, it's just about creating platforms so you and your passion can get seen. If there's anything that I know at all is that could take some years off your business, that's what we're about. We're just like, we're all the backstage. I've done lots of front stage. Let's just be your backstage and help you get out on your front stage. There's lots of ways that we do that. You know that you're our audience. You listen and you support. So look, go find your favorite music. Go find your favorite album and send it to me on social and let me know what that is. With that being said, thank you, guests. Thank you, audience. We will absolutely see you next week. And as always, I want you to be well and I want you to stay groovy. Bye for now.